Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Global Speakers Talk, where stories resonate, ideas thrive, and connections ignite. At Global Speakers Talk, our mission is simple yet profound: to provide a global platform for voices that deserve to be heard, stories that deserve to be shared, and ideas that deserve to thrive. We successfully produced more than 2,000 virtual live events beginning in 2020, and it's just getting better. I'm thrilled to have you join us today for our session titled Mindset Matters, the New Psychology of Success. Today, we're going to explore one of the most crucial aspects of personal and professional growth, our mindset. Now, to set the stage, let me start with a metaphor. I want you to imagine your mindset as the lens of a camera. And just as a camera lens can focus on the different elements of a scene to capture a picture, your mindset shapes how you perceive and respond to the world around you. A clean, well-adjusted lens can create a beautiful, clear picture, while a dirty or misaligned lens can distort even the most stunning scenery. And in the same way, our mindset determines how we interpret challenges, opportunities, and setbacks. It's the filter through which we view our experiences and the key to unlocking true potential. A growth mindset, as many of you know, empowers us to embrace learning, persist in the face of difficulties, and see failures as a stepping stone to success. Hi, my name is JB Herrera, and I'm the founder and CEO of Insight Driven Business. Our mission is to augment human experience with AI technology. And I believe we can foster a better world when we apply the strategies and practices you're going to experience today into these new technologies. In fact, I design these principles into every AI copilot and technology I design. Now, in our time together today, we're going to delve into the new psychology of success. Our speakers are going to share their insights on how cultivating the right mindset can lead to remarkable achievements in both personal and professional spheres. We'll learn practical strategies to shift from a fixed to a growth mindset and understand the profound impact this shift can have on our lives. And as we embark on this journey together, I encourage you to open your mind and your heart to these ideas and stories that will be shared. This is more than just a session. It's an opportunity to adjust the lens of your mindset camera. This is your chance to redefine your approach to success and to harness the incredible power of a growth mindset. One final thought: give yourself a gift today. Please stay until the end of today's summit because our panel of experts will be available for a limited amount of time to apply their wisdom to your situations. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. Thank you for being here today. Let's get started and explore why mindset truly matters. It's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker for today's event, the remarkable Tammy Mirza, also known as the Breakthrough Alchemist. Tammy is an internationally acclaimed mindset coach, sought-after speaker, transformative guide, and the author of several things and books, who has dedicated her life to helping individuals uncover and address the root causes of their challenges. With her unique blend of spiritual insight and practical wisdom, Tammy has transformed countless lives by guiding people through profound personal breakthroughs. She uses her extraordinary abilities to connect with individuals on a deep, non-physical level, helping them achieve clarity, healing, and transformation. Her work has been described as nothing short of miraculous, earning her the reputation of being a true alchemist in the realm of personal development. So today, Tammy's going to share her insights on how to cultivate that mindset that not only embraces success, but also fosters deep, meaningful change. Her approach is both compassionate and empowering, and she's a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who seek to transform their lives. Please join me in welcoming Tammy Mirza, the Breakthrough Alchemist. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be with all of you. This is an exciting topic, isn't it?
It sure is. So Tammy, tell us about yourself. Tell us how you would like to impart your wisdom on everybody in the audience today.
Well, I think a really good thing for me to do would be to share the reasons that I'm doing what it is that I'm doing. Would that be okay if I share just a little bit of my story so that you can see that mindset does matter? Is that okay?
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay. So at the age of 11, something happened and I got awakened. And all of a sudden, these abilities came forward and I didn't know what to do with them at such a young age. And then I started learning that using what it was that I knew would cause pain. So to give you an example, I went to a little boy at school and said, why didn't you tell me your grandmother was in the hospital for 3 days? I would have prayed for her. And he said, my grandmother's not in the hospital, but she was, and she almost died. And that's what I told him. So when he went home and told his parents said, you can't play with her anymore. We didn't want you to know this. So having these abilities and then learning that you have to pull them in, you can't be your authentic self. You can't speak your mind. You can't do anything with this stuff. I started pulling in and disempowering myself. I started trusting other people. I started believing that other people knew more than me, when actually I had all of these abilities that I wouldn't use. That led me to getting in touch with, or he got in touch with me, a guy like Bernie Madoff that stole everything I had. He was a really, really good sociopath. And I became homeless. And I would wake up every day not knowing why I did this, not understanding, feeling the heaviness of it, not understanding what I was going to do. But I knew about alchemy. I knew about changing your mindset. And I want you to know that every single time I got in that heavy space, if I didn't change my mind, I wasn't going to eat. So I had to learn through trial and error and months. I had to learn how to change the mindset to create miracles myself, to all of a sudden have money appearing in my account when I only had 50 cents. I couldn't even go to McDonald's. And so now I teach people how to change their mind, how to look past what is real, what is happening in your lives, to what do you want, and how do you change your mindset to get it. So it's an extraordinary journey. It was very, very painful. And I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are feeling that you can't do it. You don't have the wherewithal. Well, guess what? You do. And if I can do it, you can.
So, what were some of the steps that you actually went through to kind of come through your journey?
I had been playing with alchemy and conscious alchemy, I'll call it, where I was starting to create things. I was getting familiar with the laws of attraction, and A Course in Miracles are the two main things that I think for me were the catalyst. And so I knew how to manifest things by thinking a better feeling thought or not paying attention to what was bad. But when you're in such personal pain, when you've gotten yourself in a hopeless situation and you don't really know how to get out, the only choice I had was to buckle down and really look at what is my mindset, what are my thoughts, what am I manifesting, and is this what I want? So the heaviness would come. I think everybody feels that. Sometimes you can't really describe it. You don't really understand where it's coming from. You just feel this, ooh, this feels icky. I don't know what I'm feeling. It's actually because of your mindset. So when you're focusing on what it is that is in front of you, then you are crippling yourself, because the universe goes, it arises and says, your wish is my command, and whatsoever you think, I have to give you more of that. So I was in this really, really difficult, traumatizing, painful place, but knowing I had had enough experience that I knew that I could create a different reality, but every day I was facing the same thing. So in 2017, I finally said, I'm tired of this reciprocal pattern of money facing me. It was 2012 when this happened to me. And through years of one miracle, one extraordinary thing, but then falling off the cliff again, I finally said, I want to overcome it. The cool thing is that whenever you overcome a curriculum or a symptom or a predicament, the universe says we don't have to give that to him or her anymore because they have graduated. You passed the test. And so in 2017, I said, that's it. I'm not ever going to face whether or not I have money to pay my rent or to make it, or I'm going to be homeless again. I want to overcome this. I did. And not once have I ever even been close to not having enough money. As a matter of fact, every time I spend money, it comes back, and it's doubled and it's tripled. So I know these things very well. I've proven them. And you can feel the energy, I'm sure, as I'm talking about it, because it's exciting that you don't have to stay stuck.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. When you think about all the different items and points that you just mentioned, it becomes really apparent that there are a series of we'll call them characteristics that you displayed as you went through your process: persistence, perseverance, awareness, emotional intelligence. All of these characteristics that you faced on a daily basis. Would you say that mindset is one of the elements that needs to be practiced on a daily basis?
It is the catalyst that changes your entire world. When you change your thoughts and your perception and the stories that you assign or group something in, it's belief systems. And one of the things that I learned, JB, was that I can think a thought and think a thought and think a thought and think a thought, but with enough energy, with enough time, with enough vibration into that, the laws, the universal laws take hold, and I am going in that direction. My inner GPS was booked. It was navigated to a certain direction. The only way that changes is if I would do this process. As a matter of fact, at the age of 13, I started giving what I call the breakthrough code. And it's a 5-step process that I started learning. And it's a whole system that I take my clients through. But the very first stage of that is acknowledging where you are. Just sitting with it. So I was actually practicing that very first stage when I would wake up and I would feel that heaviness. I would feel the degradation. I could feel the want and wanting somebody to rescue me. I really was acting like I was a victim and I didn't have choices. And I really wanted somebody to just come in and take care of me. Don't you see how pitiful I am? But that's not how it works. We are powerful. And to the degree of what symptoms and predicaments we have created, we also have the power and the authority to change that. So the first step is really just, where am I? What am I feeling? What symptoms am I having? What are the predicaments that I'm facing? And separating the emotion to, I'm on a mission to recover. I'm on a mission to uncover it, unveil it, to expose it. Because one of the things that I have found is that fear looks, and I saw this for a period of months. I would all of a sudden be walking around, and because I'm a highly developed clairvoyant, I would see a tidal wave, like 30 to 60 feet tall. And I would look at it going, oh God, it's going to land. I mean, it's cresting. I don't know if I'm going to live. I would see that tidal wave, and I now realize that that is fear. But the only way that that would stand hovering above me is if I fed it with energy, with my mind and my thoughts. And when I would face the fear and look at it and go, you're going down, I'm acknowledging that I'm in this space, that I am in fear. Guess what? The whole thing would collapse. I'm sorry, people are texting me while I'm here. They don't know that I'm
That's okay.
with you. I'm sorry for the pinging. I can't stop it. So just understanding that where you are, you actually came here to overcome it. No matter what you face, you have the power, the authority, and the ability to change it. But as long as you're focusing on what is wrong, the universe says, your wish is my command. I will do more of that. So the mind and how we think and what we focus on is putting energy to it. So
Got
yeah,
it.
that's it.
That's it. But let me ask this one final question here. You mentioned that stories are really critical in being able to do that, and then you identified the image of the 60-foot wave. I'm imagining what that must have been like for you. That you're experiencing, you're at this low point, and you're seeing this wave, this massive thing that's way up above you. What story would you tell yourself that would enable that 60-foot wave to just kind of dissipate?
What would happen was that I had trained myself enough to know that if I acknowledge
Mm.
where I am, that's the beginning of my inner healing. So very often we're
Okay.
trying to hide, conceal, not feel. We want a Band-Aid, we want a drug, we want something to not feel it. So the initial thing that I felt was complete overwhelming fear, like, oh my God, this
Right.
is 30 feet taller, this is 60 feet tall, it's cresting, I'm going to be taken down. How do you survive a tidal wave like that? And what was
Right.
interesting was that I was living for free at the beach. So I would actually go to the beach and stare, and I
Mhm.
would see it coming at me. So my initial response was fear and overwhelmed. And then I would go, okay, I want to overcome this. I want to stop seeing this tidal wave. I started realizing that my thoughts of beating myself up, self abuse, of why did
Mm.
you do this? Why did you trust him? Why did you let him talk you into this? Why were you manipulated? My God, you're an intuitive. Don't you know better? That self abuse was feeding the tidal wave.
Mm.
So when I
Interesting.
started realizing you're the reason that the wave is growing, you're feeding fear, and that's why you feel overwhelmed. The beautiful thing about it is that whatever does not resonate, whatever feels painful, whatever feels overwhelming, whatever feels heavy, is two things. One, it's not your truth. And two, it's not in alignment. And so
Mm.
I began the uncovering process of if something doesn't feel good, it's not what I came here to experience. And that started developing hope and faith. And because I knew this, I'd been teaching it, but now I'm in this real scenario of
Right.
really having to do it myself as the teacher.
Yeah, there's nothing like having that personal experience and coming from that position, right? It's great leaders lead from the front. And how do you do that? Well, you've experienced everything you're teaching now. It's an
Yes.
amazing story, Tammy. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to, or techniques or strategies that you'd like to pass on to the audience?
I'm just going to give you a couple of the steps of that beginning of your own inner work and healing journey. And that is to really acknowledge what's going on and what you're feeling. Stop denying it, stop hiding it, stop avoiding it. Stop
Mhm.
self abusing by just saying, okay, here I am. I'm going to face it. Did you know that completely changes the neural pathways in the brain to a more purpose driven thought? And then, second of all, and I'm not going to give the whole recipe because we don't have time, but owning it. How is this affecting me? What is it doing to my
Mhm.
life? How does it feel to be in this position? Because what I knew inherently was if this isn't resonating, this isn't what I came here to experience. I'm more than this. And so
Mm.
starting this, I am more than this. I'm more than that. I'm more than that. I forgive myself and I choose again. And I
Mm.
literally, because we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day and 85% of them are negative, I was doing this thousands and thousands and thousands of times a day. It's worth it. It's worth it. And then you can create miracles once you
Mm.
acknowledge it and you own it. And owning it is whether I meant to or not. And when you're saying, I did this, I created this, whether consciously or unconsciously. And by the way, in my book, The Inmate and the Medium, I talked about this because that's where I became homeless and I'm taking the readers on that journey. I would say that knowing that I created this on purpose to thrive would get me
Mm.
going and would make me more purpose driven. And now I'm teaching the newest book is Superpowers Unleashed, Identify and
Ooh.
Monetize Your Senses. And this is it. This is the newest book and it's 300 pages. And it's how to use your 5 senses, which equate to the top 5 clairs, in order to read things, people, get the warning signs, know how you communicate with the physical and the non-physical world, and using it and owning your genius.
Wow. I'm first of all, I'm on to the book. I'm over there now. We're going to take care of that. Thank you for so much for the wisdom that you first have learned as a result of your experience and your journey, but the bravery that you have for overcoming that and sharing that with other people. Most people don't understand. They're not thinking. They're not critically thinking about themselves. You always have appeared to have that awareness of who you are, what you stand for, and that enables you to move forward. You're a beacon, Tammy. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. That's very touching, and it is so good to be seen by you. And thank you to all the listeners that are here. And no matter where you are, you've got this. If I can do it, you can.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tammy. Appreciate it. So there's some really awesome nuggets there. And again, if you're listening, stay to the end because Tammy might have a little bit of time to, kind of apply some of her wisdom and knowledge to your experience as you start to move forward. I believe that as we start applying these techniques, that you're going to see a shift in your mindset during the course of this event. And it's going to leverage all of the different thought processes that you've had in the past into a more bitter and bigger you. So please hang in there, okay? All right. I'm just checking to see, is Tim here? No, I don't think so. Okay. Hang on a second here. We're going to chat with everybody. So while we're here waiting, are there any questions or anything that you'd like to ask Tammy now? No. Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's go to. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and the next speaker is going to be Lorena Frey. So it's my great honor to introduce her. She's a remarkable individual whose work spans multiple fields and touches countless lives. She's an international TEDx speaker, best-selling featured author, a passionate human rights advocate for refugee survivors of trafficking. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She brings a wealth of clinical experience to her role as the founder of the Immigration Diagnostic Evaluations Academy and director of the IRIS Academy. Lorena works with federal government agencies, is affiliated with the UN, a contributor to ARC, the Association of the Recovery of Children, and an advocate for human rights and other agencies advocating for the physical and emotional recovery of victims of trafficking around the world. She's pursuing her PhD in psychology and cognition and instruction at Grand Canyon University, and she continues to expand her knowledge and skills. Her April 2024 TEDx talk in Harare, Zimbabwe, ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, Trauma is the Poison that Affects Our Mind, Soul, and Body, she offered insights into healing from past trauma. Lorena's unique blend of clinical expertise, advocacy work, and personal experiences make her a powerful voice in the fields of mental health, immigration, and human rights. She's uniquely qualified to speak about how mindset matters, so please join me in welcoming a true champion for those in need, Lorena Frey. Lorena, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me, JB. And just as we embark on this journey, just into the profound impact of mindset on personal growth and success, it's just amazing to know how powerful the mind is. especially when we deal with trauma. So
Awesome.
I love the title, by the way, Mindset Matters. I totally agree. Mind does matter, especially when you want to achieve success. So my question
Oh,
would be, what if
keep
you're
going.
stuck? And what if your mindset is that of trauma? So how can you change that mindset of trauma to a mindset of success? So I'll be talking a little about that. And
Awesome.
like, go ahead.
No, no, I'm curious. Trauma is a major part of everybody's life, whether it's little trauma or big trauma. So
Absolutely.
this
Yes.
becomes the key. So enlighten us, help us.
Okay. Well, as a psychotherapist, I have worked with survivors of childhood trauma that remain psychologically stuck. So they're unable to move forward and reach their full potential. Uh, like I said, the mind is such a powerful tool. Childhood trauma tends to remain internalized in many of us. And these cases of childhood trauma remain unresolved. So that has the potential to change our worldview. So as you mentioned, of my profession, I can tell you a little bit about my personal story. I am a
Mhm.
survivor of childhood trauma. Um, and I'm also a survivor of being trafficked as a teen. I experienced homelessness and drug addiction. So this set my mind to believe not only did I not matter, but I would never achieve a level of success. So that mindset was ingrained in me based on the trauma that I went through. So trauma has a tendency to sabotage our ability for personal growth. Um, Now, what we think about is how can we get out of that mindset? How can we break free from the shackles of childhood trauma? And as I mentioned, unresolved trauma affects our adult life in many ways, including self acceptance, healthy decision making, and attachment issues that lead to complicated relationships, which is a lot of what we see, especially in our society, that people tend to give up. It's too hard to work through
Mm.
things. So, with this, I want to talk about the power of mindset and personal growth. So, we see that the concept of mindset matters is not merely a catchphrase, but I believe it's a foundational truth in achieving our goals and aspirations. So today I invite everyone to explore with me how our mindset can serve as a catalyst in transforming trauma into pathways to success. But first, of course, we must understand trauma and its profound impact on our personal growth, which is so important for us to have a successful and a happy, fulfilling life. So, as I mentioned, I specialize in trauma recovery. I have had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the devastation of of unresolved childhood trauma on individuals' lives, and what that has done for them. Many of my clients have described feeling trapped in a relentless cycle of depression and anxiety that has affected their ability to break free and fulfill their potential. Whether experienced in childhood or later in life, trauma does create psychological barriers. And this, I have seen, can damage personal growth and impede the journey to success. So I personally understand the struggle. I too once found myself psychologically stuck and what I call a trauma induced mindset.
Mm.
So many of us, despite appearing perhaps successful on the outside, which is something that I had gone through, and on the outside, I looked as I was thriving, but internally, I battled with symptoms of PTSD. I had depression, anxiety, and this affected my daily life. And of course, it did impede my personal growth. And this is something we see many times with people that have suffered with a trauma and it remains unresolved. So what I've seen is this inconsistency. It's between the outward competence and the inward turmoil. It has it impacted me, and I struggled to find a way to help myself, because on the outside I was actually helping others, and I saw
Mhm.
that I wasn't progressing to the level of success that I knew my potential could have been. And this was when I was already dealing with different platforms in helping survivors of trafficking. So my journey to overcoming childhood trauma, it actually became a turning point, not just in my life, but in my career in helping survivors of trafficking as well. And so this just it was very insightful to know what that mindset was for the survivors that I worked with. And so understanding this, which is really remarkable, led me to develop it's a transformative technique, but it not only empowered me, but once I started to practice it and I saw it guided many of the people I worked with towards recovery. And I was able to see the transformation they had, and they were becoming successful in what they thought they could never achieve. So it works. I saw it work. I've done it for myself, and I continue to practice that technique.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm sharing
So,
whatever.
would you be willing to kind of give us a couple of ideas on what the technique is?
Absolutely. So we as humans, as you said, little traumas, big traumas, we have traumas. Traumas happen normally because we are being hurt or we're hurt by others. And mine, for example, was abuse and trafficking. And a lot of the people that I've worked with, my clients, they've also had unresolved childhood trauma. What
Mm.
is unresolved childhood trauma? What does that look like? Well, in many cases, it's because the abusers, we could say people that hurt you in your life, have never come to a point of apologizing for what they did to you. And
Mm.
if we think about that, even with close family members that have wronged us, we want them to apologize. It's as if we're not getting over what happened unless they apologize. And so unresolved trauma, it's deeply introspective. It's a process. And so what the technique that I actually developed at the time was to write letters. And I call this writing letters to
Mm.
your soul. These
Mm.
letters are written from the perspective of the people that hurt you. So, what I needed to hear, and I saw this in many of my clients once I started putting the technique in and as an intervention, is they represent an inherent psychological need to hear our offenders apologize for what they did to us. And it's interesting, like I said, somebody wrongs us, we want them to apologize. And when that doesn't happen, that door remains open, causes anger, resentment. So
Mm.
perhaps that hearing of apology is to bring emotional closure to the pain that they caused. And so these letters, what I did was I wrote the letters from the perspective of the people that hurt me, my abusers, many of whom I do not recall names, some faces. And being a survivor of trafficking, there's a lot of uh, disassociation, which causes you not to remember a lot of the perpetrators. So
Mhm.
I wrote these letters in the perspective that they were telling me what I needed to hear. I needed the apologies, and I could tell you how powerful the words on paper became. So
Mm.
I would tell them, okay, so what are the things that you need to hear that you never heard, or perhaps you wish they could have said. And I could tell you, JB, these words are such as, I am sorry for hurting you, or it was not your fault. And another one
Mm.
is that you matter. These are so powerful. These words, they actually lead to a journey of healing and resetting. It's like a resetting your mindset from a mindset
Mhm.
of trauma to a mindset of personal growth and success, because you have reached a point, perhaps, that there's that closure that you needed to move on with your life. So, what I say is imagine the emotional impact of putting these powerful words on paper. And so, when
Mm.
you write these letters, you mail them back to yourself, or you mail them to yourself. And so, when the letter returns to you and you read those words, it's a profound transformation. I can talk about my experience. When I received the letters, I actually held onto them for a few days. I was scared to read them because it was the fear of knowing that this was so real. This is something that had hurt me. This is something that oppressed my ability to progress in my life. And so when I started reading the letters, I was sobbing. I was shaking.
Mm.
I was I was just so taken by this internal struggle that was being released. And it was just the mind. We go back to that mindset, how powerful it is. So I like to say that this exercise, this technique, it transcends mere forgiveness of others, but it helps to heal deep-rooted wounds of pain that have shifted our mindset from reaching our potential. And I like to say that this technique does not in any way absolve anyone for what they did, of course.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
it's just acknowledging the roots of the trauma, acknowledging them, putting uh getting your power back, because that power of reading those words and reading from the perspective of our abusers saying that they apologize for what they did to us, that shifts our mindset. And it's an intentional step towards healing and growth. So in my practice, I often talk about famous people that have overcome trauma and adversity, which enabled them
Mhm.
to become successful. And these people are admired around the world. So I perhaps inspired by their journey through life and success. So two of these figures, one, of course, Oprah Winfrey, and the other, Maya
Mhm.
Angelou. They
Mhm.
both faced harrowing childhoods. They were marked by abuse, adversity. For example, Oprah Winfrey, um, through her resilience and determination, as we have seen, transformed her personal challenge into a platform for advocacy and empowerment, which is something that I have done with my life. Is I take my pain, I take my experience, and I share it so that survivors know they're not alone and they can overcome. So in Maya Angelou, through her literary expertise and invincible spirit, she
Mm.
elevated her experiences into works of art. And though they continue to inspire us now, and they will continue through generations. So just these stories, they just the shift of mindset, that mindset that they had, that they were able to just change what they were thinking, which changed their worldview. And that's what
Mm.
we have.
Yeah, I'd like to return to the point that you had mentioned about the letters themselves. I
Mhm.
know that it's similar. I think the process is similar to what Tammy was talking about earlier, in that you have a story that needs
Mhm.
to be told. Um, how would you talk to somebody who is not emotionally connected enough to have that experience? So some people would be in their heads and they would say, okay, I can write this letter, and I'm going to write the letter from there, and it's going to be fine, right? They're emotionally distant from the
Disconnected.
process that you're talking. Right, exactly. Right.
Mhm.
How do we what technique can we use to jump into the emotion, to become emotionally connected to that step in the process, so that they can actually leapfrog by days, months, and
Mhm.
years, right? What
Oh,
normally
yeah,
would take all of that time.
absolutely. Working with and this is the platform I work with, working with survivors of trafficking. Uh,
Mhm.
there's and I have seen not always are they willing to share their story. It's very difficult. It was difficult for me. And I can say from the perspective of writing these letters, someone that is suffering in deep trauma, they're they have a story. They have a story, but most importantly, they don't want to be told to tell their story. They want to
Mm.
feel safe enough to say it. They want to perhaps not feel alone. And because
Mm.
of my past, I have been able to use my story to work directly with these survivors. And it doesn't take the first time or the second time meeting with them, but it takes uh, the relationship. It's almost a therapeutic relationship that we develop, and
Mhm.
their ability to feel safe and able to start sharing. And trauma is something so powerful that it shifts our mindset. So once they're able to get to the point where I am suffering, I need to break free from these shackles uh, that have kept me prisoner in this cell of depression. And once they get to that point where I'm ready to just let go of this, how do I do that? That's when I start introducing the importance of apology, that
Mm.
hearing those apologies that we never had. And I can tell you from my experience, one of the biggest apologies that I would have, or actually I wrote, was from my mother. And that was very deep because culturally and religiously, I was trafficked and I was not allowed to go back home. So I took that with me. That trauma shifted my mindset. And so I could see
Mm.
that I felt alone. And the survivors of trafficking I work with, they have cultural and some religious uh,
Mhm.
uh, boundaries that do not allow them to have that support from family. So once they get to that mindset that they need to hear, they need that. That brings, um, I can tell you, it brings a powerful mindset into finally releasing it, because they're not just words. They write about what they remember, and they write it
Mm.
in a way that they're the person that hurt them is not just apologizing, but validating them for their pain and what the person caused. So it's not something that happens quickly, but it is a
Mhm.
process, and it's powerful
Got it.
when you do see it
So it's about part of it. Part of the process is really to embrace the pain, acknowledge it, feel it, and would you say,
and validate
um,
it. Yes,
right? Exactly. The validation becomes one of the key components in growing, in transforming the trauma
mhm.
into a motivator to take you to the next level, whatever you choose that next level to be.
Yes, yes,
Awesome,
absolutely.
awesome. So, is there anything that you'd like to share today with the audience that would enable them to feel that pain in a positive way that enables them to take their lives to the next step?
Absolutely. I believe, I'm a strong believer in the connection that we have. It's a spiritual connection. So I call these
Mm.
letters, writing these letters to your soul. It's a connection that's so deep that when you connect with someone or you connect within yourself and you're ready to release that, that is a powerful mechanism to move forward. And of a lot of times people say, well, it takes forgiveness. Is this a way of forgiveness? Holding on to not forgiving causes a lot of other issues. That's for a different show, JP. But
Right.
but just knowing that we have reached that level of letting go because we're no longer bound to that need of
Mhm.
forgiveness, that brings so much power. I remember after reading those letters, and some of my clients as
Mm.
well, they experience it's an internal, deep internal transformative feeling of forgiveness. But that forgiveness isn't for your abusers, that forgiveness is for yourself. It's a
Huh.
self-forgiveness. It allows you to move forward. It's almost like a spiritual freedom that
Mm.
you're able to see the world in such a different way. I actually felt sorry for these abusers because
Mhm.
I was no longer under their power. And I see that with my clients. They You get your power back. You get your power, your mindset shifts and you move forward. It's a transformation of personal growth. So I think it's just really powerful to get to see that and feel it.
Truly, it's the forgiveness of yourself as you go through that. I mean,
Absolutely.
as a child or a person who has been taken advantage of and had the trauma that you've had, there's probably some feeling in there like, "Why did I cause this? Oh my gosh, it's kinda crazy." Um, but
Absolutely.
forgive yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
And I do have the words that I don't tell my clients what they need to hear. I ask them what they need to hear to move on.
Mm,
And one of the things that I hear the most, actually two, it was not your fault and
mm,
you matter. Because going through that, you do not feel that you matter. It's like you said,
right,
did I cause something to make this happen to me? And yeah,
right.
so need to know it wasn't you, it wasn't your fault. And that's the power in it.
Wow, thank you so much, Lorena. I really appreciate your time. Great sharing, wisdom, and hopefully we'll have some people here who'd be willing to take advantage of just a little bit of time that you might have to help them in their journey next. Thank you, Lorena. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Tim Zimmerman. He is a renowned expert in personal growth and professional development. So, Tim is the founder of SM3 Success and has dedicated his career to helping individuals and businesses achieve their full potential. As a New York Times bestselling author, executive coach, professional training specialist, Tim has developed a unique approach to success that has transformed countless lives. With a background that spans over 25 years in leadership roles across various industries, Tim has developed a deep understanding of what it takes to cultivate a mindset for success. His dynamic approach blends practical business strategies with profound psychological insights, helping leaders navigate the complexities of today's fast paced world. And let me tell you, it is a fast paced world. Tim's latest book, Mindset Mastery Unlocking Your Leadership Potential, has become a must read for aspiring and seasoned leaders alike. Remember that book, okay? It's important. His work emphasizes the critical role of mindset in achieving sustained success and driving innovation within organizations. Today, Tim's going to share his expertise on how leaders can harness that power, inspire their teams, overcome challenges, and create a culture of continuous improvement. Please join me in welcoming Tim Zimmerman to the stage. Welcome, Tim. Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing good, except my system seems to.
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of having some technical difficulties. There's always something that goes on
Yeah.
in a show. That's
I'm
what's the wonderful part about being live
back
is that you get it fresh.
now. So
Yeah, you're
go ahead and
okay. So Tim, tell us a little bit about SM3.
so,
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this, Tim? I'm gonna come back. We're gonna see if we can get your technology working, and we'll see how we can move forward in a few minutes. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is move to our next speaker, Katja. Well, I'm gonna not KM. We talked about this before. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She is a distinguished transformational mindset strategist whose work has empowered countless individuals and organizations to achieve their highest potential. Katja is a certified hypnotherapist, a life and mind coach, and NLP master practitioner with a profound understanding of the human mind and behavior. Katja has dedicated her career to helping people reframe their limiting beliefs and unlock their true capabilities. Her expertise lies in guiding clients through transformative processes that lead to significant personal and professional growth. As a founder of Mind Dive, Katja has developed innovative strategies that address the hidden barriers preventing success. Her approach combines the latest techniques in hypnotherapy, NLP, and life coaching to create lasting change. Her passion for her work is evident in her commitment to helping others rewrite their old, unproductive narratives. Getting a theme here? Old, unproductive narratives, and replace them with empowering beliefs that foster growth and achievement. Now, her influence extends beyond individual coaching. She's a sought-after speaker at global events, and you're going to hear her energy, where she shares her insights on mindset shifts and growth strategies. Her engaging and dynamic presentations have inspired audiences worldwide, making her a respected figure in the field of personal development. So today, we're proud and happy to introduce Katja Matosevic. I knew I'm going to mess that one up, but welcome, Katja. How are you doing today?
Thank you, JB. Thank you for the great introduction. And I love your effort to say my surname. So, yeah, you can call me KM. It's
KM,
my
right.
so
Thank you,
glad to
Katja.
be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you've got a huge message to share with people. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you've come from and what you'd like to impart to the audience today.
Absolutely. So I'm Croatian by origin, and I lived the last 15 years in Italy, but I work globally on a global scale, work in 3 languages, obviously, in Croatian, Italian, and English. You see, my work is deeply, deeply ingrained in my past experience. 9 years ago, I fell very ill, and I was very ill for long 4 years. One of those 4 years, I was in bed, unable to walk. I was diagnosed with many diagnoses like fibromyalgia, Lyme disease. I had chronic pain, physical chronic pain, 24 hours a day without any relief, any painkiller, any cure. They just, I traveled all over the world to seek for help. I was slow, my organism, my body was slowly dying, and they didn't know why. So it's not the doctors didn't want to help me. They just didn't know how. So those 4 years were really challenging. I was barely walking. My eyesight was very bad. I had that pain going on nonstop. I couldn't think. I couldn't live. And you know what? I remember one morning I was crawling to the bathroom because I couldn't walk. And I tried to, got over the sink to wash my face, and I just slept, and I fall down and I hit my head on the tiles. And I just started to cry, but to cry out loud. And I was hearing my voice. That was, I was yelling desperately, please help me. Somebody help me, please. And I don't know actually how much time I spent on the floor on my bathroom. I just remember that after a long time, I felt like silence. I heard a voice inside of me. It was so powerful and so strong. And when I was yelling, why there's no one to help me, I heard a voice saying, you have yourself, you will help yourself. It was so vivid, it was so real, and I believed it. And it was so strange because I wasn't a person that as a believer, and
Right.
I was very critical thinker. I believed it. And slowly I got up and I looked in the mirror, and I didn't see the face that was a face of suffering. I looked right into my eyes, but somewhere beyond my eyes. And I knew something has changed. That I will help myself. I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. But I can tell you that that morning in that bathroom, there was an epiphany. Then I started slowly to uncover all that I knew before. I started to do transcendental meditation. It was very hard because, I couldn't think because of the pain. It was so harsh. But I started, like a minute a day. And the next day again and again and again, till I could just get away from the pain for 10 seconds. And for me, it was life. Then slowly, I started to study the mind. I invested all that I had, money, time, effort, because it was very difficult because of my cognitive situation in that period. And I studied the mind. I enrolled in several academies. And then I made those trials on myself to see what it's working, what it's not working. And I was my own experiment. And in a year and a half, I got free. No pain, not anything. The doctors couldn't believe. There was not evidence of any body suffering anymore. And in the meantime, I got even cancer. So you can imagine more stress, more tests, more suffering. But today I'm free and no relapsing, no, nothing at all. What has happened actually? Every illness on a physical level has its own root, and it all starts with emotions, with those old, crystallized, subconscious beliefs that are formed out of some emotional response in the early childhood. You see, When I was a child, I was a big warrior. I was worried about everything. I didn't grow up in a family that is like, White House, happy family. No, there were many, arguing, going, and I was always worried that I will be left alone, that I will die in the sleep, and no one will find out. Or, for example, that my parents, one of them, will die and I will be left alone. So those memories were not easy to recover. Those are not memories that that I was carrying them along. What I was carrying along were the effects of those experiences. When we Saint Ignatius Loyola, a Spanish priest, said, "Give me a child until he is 7, and I will show you a man." This is a perfect quote that shows us that till the age of 7, we are like sponges. We don't know when we arrive to this planet, we don't know if we are black, white, yellow, if we are good, bad, pretty, ugly, whatever. We don't know anything. We are just pure love. What we know about the world and about ourselves is what we have learned from others, what others have told us many, many times. And till the age of 7, what we call subconscious mind, it's all we have. The critical mind is, so a subconscious mind is a theta brainwave state. It's very similar to a hypnotic state. So we assimilate everything as the final truth. We don't have any other way to confront those truths. So it's very easy to create those old crystallite beliefs. So if they are empowering, that's great. They will help us in our adulthood. But if they're not, if they're unproductive, if they're toxic, those beliefs will lead our life. And you have heard, you will call it fate. And it's not. It's not fate. It's just the old, unproductive, limiting beliefs that are leading the way. So when we call, the subconscious mind is often referred to the inner child. And it is because till the age of 7, we are all children. And we have only the subconscious mind that we are talking about available. At the age of 7, from the age of 7 till then the age of 14, the subconscious mind closes. That means that the other beliefs, perceptions, informations that comes along have more difficulties to enter the subconscious mind because we have developed a critical thinking. So there is a barrier. But that also implicates that it's harder to access the subconscious mind to reprogram those errant beliefs. That's why I find hypnotherapy, one of the pillars for reprogramming the subconscious mind. As I said before, till the age of 7, we are operating on the theta brain waves, and
Right.
with hypnosis, we are leading our brain waves to that theta, to the theta state, and there we can reprogram all that is unproductive and most often errantly connected. So most often our toxic beliefs about ourselves or about the vision of the world are errantly connected. So it doesn't mean that our parents, society, people around us are necessarily were mean to us. They wanted to hurt us. It's just the environment, our sensibility. And, I always say one thing that helps my clients, and it helped myself with when I was dealing with my trapped, suppressed emotions like anger towards my family. There is one phrase that is so liberating, and it is that they did everything they could with the knowledge they had at that time. So if they knew better, they would do better. And everyone operates from their inner child. We are adults, walking adults, but let's say we are all children walking in adults' bodies. So if we, yeah.
I love it. That's a great image.
Yeah, can you imagine how much of the hurt we are just carrying around, and we actually act and react out of it without even acknowledging it. We can acknowledge only by, usually when clients ask me, how can I know what are my limiting beliefs? Well, just look at your life as an observer. Don't go into it. Be the observer and look at your life, at your relationships, at your career, at your health, at your wealth, abundance. Where are you? How are you feeling about? Are you happy? Or maybe better question is, do you feel joy? Because joy is not a temporary emotion. Happiness is a temporary emotion. I can be happy for something that has happened, but are you joyful? This is a deeply ingrained state of being joyful.
I love that. This is amazing. And the image that you created in my mind about an adult walking, a child walking in an adult's body is something that is very near and dear to my heart, because it's interesting also that you mentioned St. Ignatius of Loyola. I've studied his philosophy and his belief. He was the founder of the Jesuit order, and his focus was on meditation, because he believed that getting into that theta state was the method for getting closer to God. And it's interesting that your experience is such that what we're trying to do to overcome these mindset issues, whatever they happen to be, it's getting into that one state of mind where you're open to a different reality. You can forgive yourself for the things that you have done, that others have done, when you have that openness to say exactly what you just said, which is they did the best that they could with what they had at the time, and a belief that most people will do better if they are given the opportunity.
Mhm.
So wonderful stories. Are there any things that you'd like to impart to the audience today? A couple of different tactics or techniques that they might be able to apply.
Of course. First of all, I want to tell everyone to be compassionate
Mm,
to yourself. When we are usually we act out, there are two ways we act upon ourselves and upon others, either from the state of fear or either from the state of love. So when you act upon yourself out of the state of fear, you become overly critic on yourself. So just be your own best friend as you embrace yourself like you would do with a crying little child. So be compassionate with whatever is going on in your life. If you think that you are not growing enough, fast enough, that you are not where you want to be right now, just be compassionate, be tender with yourself, because once that you are aware that there is something to change, you will find the way, you will find the right person to work with, and you will get there where you want to be at your own pace. Just don't compare with no one, because there's no comparison at all, because there's no one like you. You are unique. You have to treat yourself as that. And the only comparison you should have is with yourself, but with compassion, without judgment. I encourage everyone to meditate. Why? Because we lower the stress levels and then make space inside our head. We make space for, call it a new oxygen of life. And you, that way, you learn and you exercise to be the observer of yourself, to see yourself, but outside of yourself, without judgment, just to acknowledge how are you feeling, where are you, and what's going on. So just slowly, with much love, everything can be accomplished. Everything.
No, I'd love that. That's amazing. When you think through what Katja's talking about and allow that to come into who you are, I think you'll be able to feel what she's felt and what Tammy's felt and what Lorena's talked about. It's all about being able to touch that center part of who you are, to allow that mindset to grow and open up new vistas for who you are and what you stand for. So, Katja, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. It's amazing what you've experienced, and the structure that you're using, about hypnosis and how you're applying that in your practice with other people. You're an amazing leader in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. I have enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, now what we'd like to do is introduce Regina LaFrance. So Regina is a remarkable author, speaker, and advocate whose journey of resilience and transformation has inspired many. She comes from a small village in Portugal, and until the age of, I guess, 9, I think, She endured a traumatic experience as well that forever changed her life. And despite this beginning, she's emerged as a beacon of hope and strength. Again, another powerful beacon of hope and strength, dedicating her life to helping others heal from their own traumas. Regina is the author of the deeply moving semi-autographical novel, Shayla. It chronicles a personal journey of overcoming childhood sexual abuse. And the story is not just one of survival, but of turning pain into purpose. And I'm really excited to hear what she has to say about turning pain into purpose. Through her writing and speaking engagements, Regina provides a voice for those who have been silenced by their experiences, offering them a path to healing and empowerment. And in addition to her work as an author, she is the host of the highly successful podcast called Real Talk, Real Women, which has garnered over 1 million downloads in just 9 months. And I can tell you that's an amazing metric. Through her podcast, she creates a platform for women entrepreneurs to share their stories, challenges, triumphs, and fostering a community of support and inspiration. Her advocacy extends to her role as a human rights advocate for survivors of trafficking and abuse. Her tireless efforts to support and uplift those in need have made her a respected figure in the field of personal development and trauma recovery. Today, she will share her insights on the power of self-love, resilience, and the healing from trauma. So her message is one of hope and courage and an unwavering belief that we can all rise above our past to create a brighter future. Please join me in welcoming the extraordinary Regina LaFrance. Regina, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you today?
Awesome. This has been a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to hear your story and how we can apply those special nuggets of wisdom in our lives.
Yes, I'm glad to be here today. I need to make a correction, though. I am not the host of that podcast. I'm not sure how they got there on my name, but I am not the host of that
Apologies.
podcast. That's okay. I am going to be a guest on that podcast in August.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the correction.
No worries.
So tell us about your amazing story.
Well, I am very blessed that between the age that, since I can remember, 6 years old to the age of 9, I had a wonderful childhood where my parents were loving and I had fun and I learned just about everything I know today between the age of 6 and 9. Unfortunately, at the age of 9, between 9 and 10 years old, something very badly happened to me. And I was brutally violated by a person that was viewed as a hero in our village. And when that happened, I was told by my abuser that no one would ever believe me and that I was not a ladybug, which is the name my father called me when I was little, that I was actually a cockroach and that I was stupid and ugly and that no one would ever believe me. So unfortunately, as a teenager, that's what I believed of myself. And then when I was 18, I was able to escape and move to the United States to escape my past. And I did escape the island, but I did not escape the emotions and the memories and how I felt about myself. So through my 20s and 30s and 40s, I lived a life of chaos in my mind. I was always successful. I was able to learn the language, go to college, have good jobs, and do well in my professional life. But my mind and my personal life was not anywhere near what everybody thought I was. I was always depressed. I was anxiety ridden. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like my face. I have a scar here on my face that happened from a cut that happened on one of the nights of me being brutally attacked. So when I looked in the mirror, that was always the first thing that I saw was that scar. In 2015, as a massage therapist that I am, I had a client that was very stressed out because her little girl didn't want to go to summer camp that year. And that little girl was the same age that I was when I was brutally attacked. And at that moment in 2015, I had a flashback of when I asked my mother not to make me go to music lessons where I was being molested. So that night in 2015, I called my best friend, and that was the first time I told anyone about my secret. And from there, I had this strong desire to write my story, to create awareness, to keep children safe. And I began writing my story. And I began telling some people about it. What happened was, when I started writing my story, I realized that even though I wanted to create awareness to keep children safe, I was hurting inside. I felt that my mind and my heart were still at a 10-year-old level. I was very, very successful in so many different things in my life, but not in my personal life. And that's when I began my own healing process to heal my own heart, so I could then speak about keeping children safe and about possibly other women that at my age, I'm now 60, could look back and say, wow, I am also still stuck at the age of 14 or at the age of 10 or maybe even younger. I believe that, like myself, I was always striving to be successful at everything. I was always the best at everything that I could imagine, but my emotional freedom was shattered. I didn't have emotional freedom. So I began my positive thinking, and that was very difficult, to go to the mirror and tell myself that I was worthy of love and that I was love. I didn't know how to love, and I didn't know how to feel love. And I've been working on my healing now since about 2017. And I am now able to say that my abuser holds absolutely no space in my mind or in my heart. I have relieved my abuser from any burden that I carried for so many years. And speaking of writing letters, in my book, Shayla, I write a spiritual letter to my father, telling my father what happened and why I became the teenager that I become. And I also wrote a letter to my abuser, not to forgive him or give him any right to be free, just to free myself. And I learned how to love and how to have boundaries and how to respect myself, because it's something that I never knew how to feel. And now, as I feel this divine power and this divine love and this divine energy that comes from within me, from a very humble and gentle place in my heart, I want to bring forward the information to other women that, like myself, suffered tremendous trauma at a young age, and they possibly haven't released that trauma yet and returned to love for themselves.
Oh, that's amazing. What a great mission in life, right?
Yes.
As you reach out to these women, Regina, how are you able to communicate to them that it's a step that they need to take to open themselves up? It took you a long time to get to that place where you were able to open up to somebody else. So how can we help our audience who are listening open up to begin that process of healing?
It's very difficult to open up, and a lot of women, my experience have been that they say, oh, I could never do that, or I could never tell myself in the mirror that I am worthy, or even tell other people or speak out loud of details of what happened to them. Just like myself, for 45 years, I lived my life with a mind that it was filled with shame and sadness. And I chose to never tell, because I didn't want to be judged, and I didn't want people to think less of me, because that's what I thought of myself, was less than.
Right. So would you say that we can turn that around? Because we have a thought process that says if we're not achieving a certain amount of things, or we don't have something, whatever that ends up being, that we're less than by default. But if we're to say, I want to share this because this makes me more than, right? Turning that around into something that can propel you into the next step of whatever your journey ends up being. Now, obviously, I'm not a woman and have never experienced what you experienced. But what I can say as a man and as a young boy, I was always the smallest, the frailest, and the child that was always picked on by all my friends and even my family. So I resonate to some extent with what you experienced, and so I'm 67, so you're a young girl at 60, so there you go. But it took a long time to get to a place where I was willing to say, you know what, that's okay, we're going to turn this around. I'm not that little boy anymore. I'm not that person that I was all of those many years ago. They're not the same people, and we can make a choice to move forward. I applaud you for the bravery of coming forward, of taking that next step. So how can we inspire other women to do the same thing that you've done?
It's very difficult, and what I've done and what I tell other people to do is that you have to accept the fact that it happened, and then you have to tell yourself that it wasn't your fault, and you have to understand that it's never a child's fault. You have to dig deep into your intelligent mind and start telling yourself that it wasn't your fault. It's never a child's fault, and that another person or more people, other people, chose to hurt you as a young girl or a young boy. Because let's not forget that trauma, it's not just sexual. Trauma can be anything from neglect, poverty, a number of things. A child can be picked on because they have a condition or because they're handicapped. There could be a number of things. So a trauma comes from a place of not fitting in, or a place of being picked on, or assaulted, or brutally abused, or it just, trauma is trauma to the brain. So people want to forget that they were picked on because it hurts so much. Yeah. But we need to learn that the power of the brain and the energy that we will receive from doing the homework, it would be like learning a different language. I like to put it as simple as possible. Imagine going to another country like I did, and now you have to learn another language. It's like reprogramming the brain to believe beautiful things of yourself, to think of yourself as a person that has a birthright to have happiness and to have love and to feel it. So I read the book The Secret about 15 years ago. I learned all about the power of attraction and manifesting. However, I didn't feel it. I knew it, but it wasn't until I started applying it 24/7, every minute. Every time you have an emotion or you have a negative feeling or you have a trigger, you have to immediately tell yourself, this is a trigger, this is not who I am, and I am not going to engage or be part of that trigger. Emotions will control your life. So if you think that you're not good enough, you're not going to be good enough. So it's like learning another language. You are now in your new country and you have to speak the language, because if you speak your native language, they're not going to understand you and you're not going to be able to communicate. And the language of love, for self, is difficult because, again, we have thousands of thoughts every single day about how we're not good enough. But when you discover the power of love that comes from a very, very gentle place in your heart, not from a place of ego, because it won't work. It has to be from a genuine humble place in your heart, and you truly, truly love who you are, the person that you are, and you deliver and serve love for yourself, then you can serve love to others. And your life, your energy, your personal space, your boundaries, you can say anything that you mean, and you can mean anything that you say, and it comes from a place of love in your mind and in your heart, and that's when you know that you have achieved emotional freedom.
Oh, that's amazing. When you think about what you just described, uh, it's a way of life, right? Being
Yes,
able to go into that state of mind and stay there to the extent that you can, because we're human and we're
yes,
going to trip and fall. But by the same token, trusting and loving yourself enough to get up and say, I forgive myself for that mini transgression or whatever that was, and love myself enough to move forward into the next step and the next step.
yes,
And pretty soon it's not steps, you're now jogging. And after jogging, you're running because you've built momentum around yourself. You have a
yes.
tremendous amount of momentum in your life now where you're at. What's next for you?
So for me, next would be to open my retreat, which is going to be called the
Ah,
Ladybug Movement Foundation. And my retreat is going to be state of the art, where women that are victims of child trauma can come and learn how to achieve emotional freedom. So everyone is going to come through the door wearing a victim badge, and only love
mm,
will be served at my retreat. And
mm,
the hope is that everyone is going to be able to retire their victim badge, possibly the second week. And then the goal will be to achieve and wear proudly the triumph badge that they will receive at the end of the program. So right now I'm writing my program, and again, only love will be served. And I'm connecting to a lot of people throughout the country and the world. And I absolutely today loved meeting Katja and Lorena and Tammy. And I'm just so excited to have met you and be part of this team here. And when I was waiting backstage to go on, they said everything I was going to say. So, but my message is my own words, my own experience. So we all three of us said just about the same thing. And the bottom line is love for self. And once you learn that, you're going to be golden. And remember, it is never a child's fault. It is never a young man or a young woman's fault that gets traumatized, whatever the trauma may be. It is never a victim's fault.
yep, absolutely. It's never the child's fault, never. Um, and when you think about it, we talked a little bit about that child that's in an adult's clothing, right?
Yes.
Many times in our lives, we're still that child,
Yes.
right? We still have those same fears, still have that image of how we were when we were 5, 10 years old,
That's right.
and giving ourselves the freedom to forgive ourselves and not be guilty for whatever result has occurred is
That's right.
something that I think is resonates from your story and with the other speakers today. I think that's it's an amazing. This has been a powerful um, hour and a half together. So, what would you say to the rest of the audience? Because we're going to bring everybody on screen here, and this. First of all, ladies, thank you so much for being here. I am in awe of your power and strength. This has just been an amazing time for me personally. What I'd like to do is let's take maybe a client that you have or a situation that you've experienced, and let's go through it together because I think there's going to be massive amounts of power by doing that together. Is that something that you guys would be willing to do?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's take a hypothetical person, and let's say that she's in her mid 40s or 50s, and has not felt comfortable in her own skin for all of this time, right? How would we go about helping her to become the woman that she was supposed to be, the woman that is inside of her, the woman who can inspire other people? How can we do that together?
Well, I love the fact that you brought up the child. The concept of the inner child is so real. It is very real. And which brings us back to childhood trauma. When it's unresolved, that child is still suffering. The child is in there screaming, begging for help. And we on the outside are these adults. They said we're walking around as if we're fine. And I actually do bring up the inner child to many of my clients, which I would do that to this uh, person, this client we're talking about, and talk about the inner child and bringing a reality to that child, but not just the reality of the child, but also validating the pain the child went through. And I think that is
Mm-hmm.
one of the first steps into understanding that what we see as adults that's affecting our life is because that inner child is not healed. And it's so amazing to see the power of the mind to do that. And like Katja said, that subconscious part of us that is unable to manifest a mindset to release that, that's what we walk around with. And what happens to us, the transformation on the outside as adults, we suffer from depression, from chronic illnesses and I totally understand ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, is so huge. It affects 1 in 6, well, in the US, 1 in 6 Americans that are dealing with trauma.
Wow.
And I had fibromyalgia, I had lupus, I couldn't walk. And it wasn't until I released it. And just like Regina said, it's not to give power to our abusers, but to let go of that so that we regain our power back and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
power over us anymore. And it's releasing that. And that child, we're empowering our inner child to break free from that emotional bondage. And I just love this. Just everything. This is a very powerful platform. I just love it.
Absolutely, it is. Wow. I want to tell another thing. Clients ask me, can we change the past? And they are very confused when I say, yes, we can, actually. Like, how? Well, do you remember when I told you that when I was a little child, I didn't want to sleep because I was so scared to die during the sleep?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how could I ever possibly change that? Well, easily, easily, with like theta edge meditations and hypnosis. What I did, I became my savior. Me.
Mm-hmm.
I am the one. I'm not seeking help from the outside. So, in that meditation and hypnosis, I went in that room where that 4-year-old me was laying in her bed, scared to close her eyes. And I just lay down beside myself, my little for me. And I just talked to her. I reassured her. I gave her everything that she needed at the time and she didn't got. So I reinforced, I changed my narrative because, your mind does not know the difference if it's happening right now, was happening in the past, or is in the future. So you can change your past by changing the circumstances, by giving the power to yourself back. And this is that empowering you are bringing into your own reality back. So
Yeah, it's
that's it.
interesting. Yeah, Katja, that's amazing when you think about what you're talking about. The power of being able to interpret and act in the past differently, and having that be a completely different story that you're telling yourself. Remember that stories? We talked about that earlier. And the meaning behind those stories all of a sudden becomes the empowering activity for what will come in your life. I just personally believe that we're all wonderfully divine individuals with an opportunity to really benefit all of the world. The challenge for us, though, is to allow that to come out, right? So what you're describing is one of the processes that we can actually utilize. And all the audience, if you're listening today, that was brilliant, right? Change the narrative, change the story that you have about that observation that you may have had in the past. So Katja, thank you so much. That was awesome.
It's
Tammy,
almost
how
like
about
you
you?
have it's like the adult saving the child. That's
Yes.
pretty much what
Right?
it's amazing.
Thank you for sharing that, Katja. I actually learned how to do that at the age of 11. I had to go rescue. And I met myself in the hallway when I was hearing what my mom was saying. And I said, I'm your protector. So thank you for sharing that. What I
I
would
have goosebumps, when you said that. Oof. Yeah.
It was a very powerful thing, and I do that process with clients. I would say one of the things that we can do that is one of the most beneficial, and it's what I do with my clients, and I really believe that all of you ladies do this as well. It is one thing for us to give the spiritual laws, the universal laws, to teach those things, to give them that truth. But do you know what the percentage is of people that really change when they go to a Tony Robbins event? It's 0.025%. So the way that we reach them is to actually take them home to who they are. How do you function? How do you think? Do you use humor? How do we reach you intimately, personally, and build you, let you know what are your spiritual abilities? What are your gifts? How do you communicate? How do you view the world? What is your level of intelligence? All of that is such a big part. So if we, as people that instigate healing, and do this inner work and help with this mindset transformational work, if we're not also identifying who the individual person is, how they process, how they can view it, if we're not using our intuition to connect them with that truth, then they don't feel as equipped. So one of the things that I would share is, and I'm sure that all of you do this, I have no doubt, and I love all of you. And JB, it's so cool that all of us are really sharing some of the exact same things. Every single one of us have been to hell and back, and we've all graduated it, and we all have this to give. If we can reach all of you by saying, not only are we going to teach you the spiritual laws and the universal laws and teach you how this world works and the game we're playing, but you're going to walk away knowing you. You're going to go home to you. To me, whoa, that's when the real transformation happens, is not just the spiritual laws and truths, but you know you. If we're not doing that, I don't think we're as good of a leader.
Absolutely. I totally agree. We are talking about not about change, but a transformation.
Yes.
And it's a radical one.
And that's how the mindset shifts, transformation.
Yes, I like I said before, I always knew about the concept, but it wasn't until a few months ago that I actually got it, that I understood my divine power, my energy, my God, my source, my spirit, my mind. And I understood it. I know I was driving and I said, I got it. I just got it. It was just an amazing feeling that I understood it. Because we always pray to God and we always say, oh God, this, oh God, that. and it's within our power, our divine, and we have to connect from our source to the source that gives us the energy. And I had some people say to me, "Oh, you call it God. Some people call it the universe. I call it my divine," and it works.
Yes.
Mhm.
Truly, absolutely, that's the case. So I would like to ask one question, since we have such a powerful group of ladies here. How can we help the men? How can we help the men?
It's the same.
Same
I mean,
way.
I'm,
you,
I'm
yeah, you
right.
had
Uh,
mentioned, JB, we all have a type of trauma. And what's interesting is that although we talk about trauma, we think, oh, it's an assault, it's something physically or done to us. But even ACEs has extended their parameters to include bullying. Bullying
mhm,
causes also the manifestation of medical, emotional, psychological problems as an adult, that many that have been bullied in their childhood. So that changes your mindset, your worldview, and that's how that is also
mhm,
affected. So for men, and it's interesting you say that, because uh, even the ACEs study, which if our viewers can look into that, that is very interesting, because it came up as something that women were always going to the doctors because they're sick all the time, they're emotional, they're everything. But men did not, and still men don't, because that part of them, they almost, because you're a man, you're supposed to kind of just deal with it. Your emotions are just not. Uh, you're weak if you show emotion. Many cultures still
Mhm.
mhm,
uh, believe that. So I think socially, culturally, that has oppressed the male to not go into understanding or even validating what they have suffered. So they stay in stuck. And I always
mm,
go back to that inner child, because that child is screaming for help. And on the
Mm.
outside, we're trying to live an adult life with adult, whatever relationships, work, careers, yet there's a suffering child inside of us. And I think I see that working. My husband, he's a retired law enforcement and military. And I see that a
mm,
lot with those
mm,
those two different careers, because they're almost not allowed to be emotional, to feel emotional, or to talk emotional. And so that really affects a person. And for the males, under validating that it's okay to feel, it's okay to think about things that may affect you. And I think the most powerful thing, again, going back to where are you right now? What's going on with your life that you believe, I've reached this level of success. What's wrong with me? Why am I not happy? And I think
mm.
validating that to a point where, let's talk about this. You should be there, but yet mentally you're not. And it's incongruency. So that pretty much what
Right.
everyone's talking about is
So
what
Yeah.
is affecting us and men. So bringing them to the forefront, validating them for what they are perhaps feeling and not talking about.
I
It is
think that,
very, very interesting.
sorry.
No, no, no. Go for it.
Oh, I wanted to say just that the phrase "boys don't cry" have put more men in the mental jail and emotional
Yeah.
jail than the law and justice did. So that phrase that you can hear from every state globally and going back in time, "boys don't cry,"
Mm,
has ruined so many men on the emotional level.
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah, and even
mhm.
cultures teach that
Yes,
to feel emotion is a sign of weakness. And it's
that's
not,
right.
if you think about it, it's probably the most powerful human thing that we have is emotions.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I find it really interesting because I'm going through raising a grandson. He's now 3 years old, and guiding him to make these decisions that are consistent with being a whole human person, right? And yet, at 3, he wants to win. And that feeling of winning is more important than the feeling of being, right?
Mhm.
Now, I can absolutely tell you that that's not how we're raising him, but I know that that's what's going on in his head because we just went to swimming lessons and he wanted to win that prize, right? So, and I find this in business because I've been coaching hundreds of CEOs around the world, and the same thing happens. On the one hand, we're taught that we should be able to address these emotions, these feelings, that we need to have an allowing process to grow to be the person that we're supposed to be, but we're not rewarded for that in the business marketplace.
Mhm.
We're rewarded for being at the top, right? It's funny because on the one hand we have Maslow's hierarchy where we're trying to get to the top, right, to have that level of transcendence, but and there's a pyramid in business, which is you're the CEO, and if you're not at the pyramid, you're at the top, you're not worth it. You're not compensated enough. So we set these two images in our head that creates a significant incongruency. And what's interesting is that I bring this up from a male perspective, but I'm seeing this with many women CEOs as well. They're battling that. It becomes, if you're going to participate in that world, you have to participate with those reward systems. And what we're talking about here, I want to translate that into something that we can apply in a business scenario for the benefit of everybody. That's kind of my mission in life. That's why I'm here seeking guidance from strong women and strong speakers who have come through this journey, because I believe it's our calling to deliver our message to as many people as possible to help them uplift themselves. Right?
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Absolutely.
So,
What you were talking about now, it's how our society is functioning. But you can see the layer here, the pattern, that we are giving our power outside. So we have to meet certain levels. We have to achieve something. I would say that when we learn to internalize and to grow inside ourselves, it will show up even in your career. It's like, when you have a river, and if you are swimming upstream, it will be very difficult, right? If you let yourself, if you relax yourself, you go with the flow. Okay? So it's just the battle. It's not outside.
Yeah.
Not the work
Love
and
it.
not the battle. It's inside of us. So I know that there are paradigms like women, even from the early age, like children, we like to take care of things. We like to take care of our dolls or animals. We are encompassing. We are caregivers, and the men are achievers. Like they have those are ancestral lineage. But if you teach a little kid that he wants to win, but it's okay, it's nothing wrong with it to win, but to not to see himself, not even as a winner, not even as a loser. Just
Right.
you did that and you won. Good. You're still the same person. You're always good when you win or where you lose. So not to bring kids on the level, when usually, I don't know, I was raised like that. If I did something good, oh, you're such a good girl. And if I did something bad, oh, you're such a bad girl. So I had identity problems. Am I good or
Right.
am I bad? Like, and this should not happen. We know much better than this.
Mhm.
So
That
your
is
identity,
so true.
yeah.
But going back to what JB was saying is, if we think about social constructs, this
Mhm.
is goes back in grade school. We all try to get that A. And
Yeah.
that's like young. We want to get that star or that happy face. So
Mhm.
it goes back to,
It goes back.
Katja, like what you said. It's ingrained in us. It's, you're either going to reach the high level or you're not. You matter if you do, and you don't matter if you don't. And I think that in business, I see that in leadership. And you said you saw it, you see it in women too. Well, even Maslow's hierarchy, we're trying to, self-actualization is the top. Once we get there, everything's great. We're at the
Mhm.
top of the pyramid. But when we're at the top of the pyramid, we want more. We're not satisfied there because we have not really, what's self-actualization? But like we're all
Mm.
talking here, it's got to be more spiritual. And when
Mhm.
we make it spiritual, that top level of the pyramid goes beyond that. We
Mhm.
don't just stay stuck there. So I think it's very interesting.
Can I just share
Well,
something really quickly? Do we have time,
sure.
JB, for me to share something? For me, communicating with anyone is about who I am, knowing who I am, and then learning how to reach somebody else by communicating on their level or language. So
Mhm.
to me, even though the male and the female mind work differently, and I studied with a physicist to understand the neural pathways and dopamine and testosterone and what that all means, if we know who we are, it is our job to actually communicate. And that's one of the things that I just covered in my brand new book. And that is, who are you? What are your abilities? How do you communicate? How do you process things? How do you think? What is it that you read? Are you visual? Are you through feeling? Communicating that with another person is one of the things that I cover. Is that, how do you draw somebody in to help them to understand how you're processing, and how do they process so that you can communicate with them
Mhm.
where they are? It's not so important what our messages are. What is important is, am I reaching you? Am I engaging you? Am I communicating in a way that you can understand me? Am I explaining it? Am I helping you to see it? So to me, it's about reaching people with who we are and then knowing who they are instead of having an agenda.
Ooh, I
Absolutely.
love that.
In other words,
I love that.
reaching them to where they are at their level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, this has been an amazing experience. Again, thank you, ladies, for everything that you've done today. Um, but unfortunately, all good things come to an end. And as we come to a close of today's Mindset Matters, the new psychology of success, I want to thank each and every one of you for your active participation and your engagement. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we've had the privilege of hearing from an exceptional lineup of speakers. And I wanted to reflect just one moment on the insights shared today. I want to remind you that your mindset is like the lens of a camera through which you view your world. And just as that photographer adjusts their lens to capture the perfect shot, you have the power to adjust your mindset to see opportunities, overcome challenges, and create the life you desire. Now, these ladies have demonstrated a series of methods that help you clean focus and even change that lens sometimes. Whether it's through reframing limiting beliefs, developing resilience, practicing self-love, or embracing transformational strategies, you now have a toolkit to refine your mental lens and see the world and yourself in a new light. So as you leave today, I encourage you to take a moment to adjust your lens. Look at your life, your goals, and your challenges through this new perspective. And with your refined mindset, what new possibilities can you see for yourself? What opportunities are now in focus that you might have missed before? Thank you once again for being part of this event. May your newly adjusted mindset lens help you capture all the success, joy, and fulfillment that life has to offer. And as Tammy said earlier today, instigate healing. Make today, every day, your masterpiece. Safe travels, and until we meet again, keep focusing on what matters most, your mindset. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.